Alright, so today I want to talk about a concept that I came up with that I call the Decay of Effectiveness concept. And it's something I use in order to help me make better decisions for whatever I'm going to invest time in or not invest time in. And it's a very simple idea. The idea is that the effectiveness of an action or a decision has a different rate of decay depending on what level of essentially human actualization you are in. So for example, let's say that you're in the middle of a battlefield, you're in the middle of a war, you don't have time to write a to-do list. It'll take about 5 seconds to pull out a notebook and get a pencil ready, and grenades don't wait 5 seconds for you. So every single decision you can make at that single time is your immediate survival. So if you're watching this, you're probably doing a little bit better than that. You have the internet, you have power, you probably have potable drinking water. Just make a safe assumption that most people are above that if you're watching this. After that, you have people who might be living paycheck to paycheck, and then you have a completely different level. This point in time, you do have the luxury of pulling out a notebook, writing a to-do list, and deciding to make plans that are a little bit more long-term. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you should probably never make any kind of plans that last more than a day, because the effectiveness of the decision will diminish. After a day, you've already lost maybe a quarter, a fifth of your paycheck. All the things you're working with are kind of fast moving depending on your hunger. You might need to refill your fridge. You might need to make sure power doesn't get shut off. You have the effective ability to make a decision that lasts you until the end of the day. So at that next level, you can make daily plans and execution. So let's say you're doing a little bit better than that. You have a nice, good job, maybe multiple sources of income, maybe you rent out a property, so you can make longer term decisions. If you were to pull out a notebook and say, well, I plan on doing this, how far out, and this is where the decay of effectiveness goes, how far out can you make a plan before it's just not effective to really expect it to work out, to be able to make a plan that you can actually follow through on. That's another thing. Can you actually follow through on that plan? People make pipe dreams all the time. They say, one day I'll do something. If you're falling for one day syndrome, you're probably working outside of your degree of effectiveness. At that point, you could probably look into 1 week, maybe 1 month, depending on exactly how good you're doing, what the quality of life where you're living is. 1 month of effective planning. So let's say now you're a decision maker. Maybe you're a C-level executive, you're doing pretty well, you have a large amount of money, some equity that you can pull out of something else later on. If you're a decision maker, you might be working in politics or some other such thing. Now your plans also affect a larger amount of people. And that's what's really distinguishable about this point over here. You now have a larger group of people that your plans affect. And at this point, you might actually be able to make plans for a year. You might say, well, in 1 year we're going to approve this budget for this road. In 1 year I plan on moving to such and such a place. You can outsource all of your immediate daily and week to month plans to other people. You probably have people who are full-time decide on those things for you. You make a plan, and so long as everything else is executed, you can be certain that your year-long planning is pretty much covered. Now beyond that, the place where most people really seem to want to be, like a fully actualized person, the beauty of that is as you go up, you can start forsaking things on the bottom. My sister once told me something when I first started making my life decisions. I told her I wanted to live pretty much free of everything. I wanted to be able to travel the road, go to the mountains. She said, the funny thing is that only people who are wealthy and successful can have nothing. Otherwise, you can't live in a world like that. And it never really made sense until maybe 10 years later when I actually understood what she meant. That's where you have people who are true influencers. They might have followers. They're real deep leaders. They have everything else taken care of. They have a very large gamut, maybe 5 years, decades of effective, non-decaying decision-making capacity. That's why Nelson Mandela could be in jail and still lead entire movements. That's why Gandhi and Buddha could essentially starve themselves and succeed and survive pretty well while also continuing to be leaders of a movement. They were at such a high level that their necessities were covered for them by the very nature of how much they've achieved and how much was supporting them below that. They could shuffle something off and still have everything else lifting them up. And this gives you, essentially decades long of choosing. These are the people who, Elon Musk can say, by 2018 we're going to be on Mars. That's a choice he can make. He can literally sit and decide the fate of the human race, what planet we will settle on, where we're going to grow our food within a decade, 5 years to a decade. That's a very powerful thing to do. The problem I find is that most people try to start right over here, and they start making very big plans. They say, well, I'm going to make my 5-year plan. It's really good to do that because you know what you want to do in general, but all of this is really fuzzy. If you're on a week-by-week paycheck situation, it's best to find a really good foundation of extending that effectiveness to just being a week, to just being a month. If you can't jump from here to here, there is no way you're going to make it from here to here or anything in between. You're pretty much stuck, and the more you try to do anything else, you're losing effectiveness every time you look further than that central point. So this is the Decay of Effectiveness, and you're basically making a concentric circle for what you're able to accomplish based off of your ability to decide and execute a decision. And it makes a lot of sense if you really think about it. And if you ever find yourself trying to figure out what you can invest in, if you have a bunch of money, or any kind of money, or any kind of time, and you're trying to figure out what you can invest that time or that money, or any human assets, anything, period, you want to figure out where you are. And you don't want to overextend yourself, because you will end up putting yourself in a situation where you'll invest, $5,000, and you'll end up coming out negative. And that happens if you have to take a loan out. If you take a debt out to make something like that, you're going to find yourself with so much more interest on the back end because the effectiveness decayed and worked out against you. So don't make $5,000 investments if you don't have at least $5,000 of effectiveness already built into your life. It's really tempting to make the big risks, and sometimes it works to be speculative, but more often than not, it's not the logical thing to do, and it's almost an unethical decision to make or to advise somebody to make, unless, of course, they have some other lower levels of foundation set up for them. And that's pretty much all I have for you today. Thank you very much.